Greetings, everybody. Gleekon here again with another episode of Lore of Warcraft as we continue along with Chronicles. So we now have one called The Founding of Quel'Thalas. The last we left off, the Highborn had been driven out. They sailed across the Great Sea. They landed in what will become known as the Eastern Kingdoms. They moved up to the terrestrial region. They discovered there was some magical ley line energy there, and they also were worried that, hey, it was kind of tainted. So the leader of that one, Mr. Sunstrider, he decided to continue to push them further north where they felt even more energy and they could get away from the taint that they felt. So this is 6,800 years before the opening of the Dark Portal, which is 500 years. Because the last thing that we did, we had the Long Vigil. So after she kicked them out, she just kind of kept everything safe for a while, and we had the Long Vigil. So 500 years later is when this happens. Stay a while and listen and see what it is. Far from the dense woodlands of Ashenvale, Dathramar Sunstrider and the Highborn continued their quest to find a home in the Eastern Kingdoms. They followed the trails of magical essence, seeking the confluence of ley lines that their scouts had spied in the north. The Highborn's journey proved unexpectedly brutal. A ferocious blizzard stopped the elves dead in their tracks for nearly a month as they traveled, with no way to move forward or escape from the mountain passes. The Highborn quickly realized just how vulnerable they had become without the Well of Eternity. For the first time in memory, they began to die of starvation. Only the compassion of some primitive humans living in the mountains kept the entire expedition from perishing in the winter's fury. Once the storm lifted, the Highborn forged ahead, shaken but determined to find a new home. As they drew closer to the land that the scouts had found, hope warmed their very hearts. Verdant woodlands blanketed the terrain, and the ground beneath the Highborn's feet crackled with potent lines of magic. But the elves soon discovered that another race also called this region home, the barbaric Amani trolls. And if you notice, right when you go into the Bloodlands is what I think they're called, there's a huge troll empire. I think it used to actually be a Burning Crusade dungeon or raid or something, but it is now defunct. It's one of the ones, there's not a lot, but it's one of the ones that they have just done away with. It doesn't exist anymore. And I wonder exactly why. I don't know that I ever played it. If I did, it was when Burning Legion came out, but I don't think I ever did. So yeah, when it comes down to that, we might have to just try to watch a video of someone that else did, and we'll comment on it if we cannot access it, or we could do Burning Crusade Classic. I'll consider it. The arrival of the Highborn infuriated the trolls, who harbored a bitter hatred of elves from the days of Queen Ajara. The Amani sent out raiding parties immediately, and the Highborn soon learned to fear troll ambushes in the dense forests. Yet the elves stubbornly pressed forward, using their magical powers to decimate any Amani who dared cross their path. Soon the trolls also learned to tread cautiously. Continuous skirmishes forced a mutual enmity between the Amani and the Highborn. Despite the trolls' ferocity, the elves finally reached the nexus of ley lines that they had been seeking. Powerful torrents of arcane energy converged in the vibrant forests. Dathramar proclaimed that this was where they would begin their civilization anew. Before the eyes of his followers, Dathramar revealed something he had kept hidden over the long and tortuous journey to the north. A vial filled with the enchanted waters from the original Well of Eternity. Now, how did he get that? Illidan had some, unless he just happened to have grabbed some on his own, so I guess that's a small possibility. Just before the Highborn had been exiled from Mount Hyjal, Dathramar had secretly taken one of Illidan's Storm Range's remaining vials from the custody of the Night Elves. There we go, okay. Dathramar poured the vial into a small lake at the center of the Nexus, and a brilliant fount of energy tore through the skies of Azeroth. The Highborn dubbed this glorious cradle of power the Sunwell, a name chosen in honor of Dathramar and his bold quest to reignite their culture. Thereafter, the Highborn abandoned their traditional worship of the new moon, instead taking their strength from the sun. In time, they would even be known by a new name, High Elves. The amount of arcane power available to the elves increased by an astonishing degree. Many of them proclaimed that Dathramar had brought them salvation. They called their new land Quel'Thalas, or High Home, and declared that it would dwarf the Night Elf civilization and stand as a monument for the ages. I believe these are definitely the elves, too, that you get in Warcraft 2. The trolls did not agree. The High Elves had built their new kingdom atop ancient Amani ruins still considered hallowed ground by the trolls. Outnumbering the elves by more than 10 to 1, the Amani struggled ferociously to drive the invaders from their sacred land. The High Elves drew on the full might of their newfound power, barely holding off the trolls' assaults. Dathramar himself led almost every battle against the fierce Amani. Bit by bit, the elves carved out the borders of their kingdom, securing a new home paid for in the blood of their brothers and sisters. And the blood of the indigenous people, the trolls. That's messed up. Yet many of the High Elves grew wary of their rampant use of arcane magic, fearing that it could draw the Burning Legion to Azeroth once again. Dathramar sent his most powerful arcanists to find a solution. Over several decades, they built a series of monolithic runestones around Quel'Thalas' borders. This barrier was called Bandinoriel, or the Gatekeeper, in the High Elven tongue. It would prevent others from detecting the elves' usage of arcane magic, and it would also frighten away the superstitious Amani. The trolls eventually retreated back to their temple city of Azulaman. They decided it was safer to ambush elven convoys that strayed beyond the magic barrier than to launch a full-scale assault on Quel'Thalas. An elite group of High Elf Rangers soon arose to combat this threat. Those are the ones that will go to Warcraft 2. Inside the borders of Quel'Thalas, civilization thrived. No longer fearful of using magic, the High Elves created marvelous works and bathed their land in eternal springtime. Never again would they experience another winter as brutal as the one they had suffered en route to this land. Their capital, Silver Moon City, became a shining monument to the memory of the Elves' ancient empire. With the new empire established, Dathramar stepped down as leader. His bloodline would go on to inherit a kingdom of peace and prosperity, yet this era would come to an end when Dathramar's great-grandson, Anastarion, donned the mantle of leadership. He would come to power at a time when his people faced war with the trolls once again. Because they're not immortal like the Night Elves, so they're going to just continue to age in a normal way. This High Elf Ranger society, that's like the fringes, they're the ones that are going to mingle with the races. And also, I think that those border stones, that's why it's not until the Burning Crusade when people started encountering the Blood Elves again, because otherwise, where were they? Where were they in the first two wars? Where were they in the third war? Where were they in these other times? We still don't know why they become known as the Blood Elves yet, though. High Elves, sure, but why is this one faction called the Blood Elves? Okay, another episode in the Pipes 5x5. Thank you for joining me on this history of the Blood Elves in their ancient times. See you guys in the next episode of Lore of Warcraft.